The secret I wish to impart to you this evening is this. Only 1 minute of properly directed consciousness is required to set in motion the forces that can manifest even the seemingly impossible in your world. 1 minute of perfect imaginative control can birth miracles that defy all logical explanation. Many of you have traveled great distances to be here tonight, seeking answers, seeking transformation. You have tried countless methods, followed numerous teachers, and yet the fulfillment of your desires remains elusive. I say to you now, cease your searching in the external world. The kingdom you seek is within you, and it requires but a moment of proper attention to unlock its boundless treasures. When I speak of 1 minute, I am not speaking in terms of compromise or limitation. Rather, I am revealing to you the tremendous power that resides in a perfectly concentrated moment of consciousness. For time, as you understand it in your waking state, is merely an illusion, a creation of your own wonderful human imagination. In the realm of true creation, in the realm of imagination, there is no time. There is only the eternal now pregnant with infinite possibilities. And it is in this eternal now that all your desires already exist as accomplished facts. Your task is not to create what you desire, but to claim it as already yours through the controlled direction of your imagination. Consider this fundamental truth. Your consciousness, your awareness of being is God. The Bible declares, I am that I am. This is not speaking of a deity removed from you, dwelling in some distant heaven. This I am is your fundamental awareness of existence, your consciousness, and it is the one and only creative power in the universe. When you say I am, you are declaring the name of God. And whatever you attach to this divine declaration becomes the condition, the state you experience. If you say I am sick, I am poor, I am unwanted, you are using the creative power of the universe to manifest these very states. But equally, when you declare I am wealthy, I am loved, I am successful, even when all appearances contradict these statements, you are engaging the same divine power to bring these conditions into your experience. The 1 minute I speak of is a minute of complete immersion in the feeling of your wish fulfilled. It is a minute in which you close the doors of your senses to the present limitations that surround you and enter fully into the imaginal scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire. In that minute, properly employed, you can rewrite the script of your life. Let me share with you an experience of one of my students that illustrates this principle perfectly. This gentleman had been unemployed for nearly 2 years. His savings were depleted, his confidence shattered, and his family was on the verge of destitution. Every job interview ended in rejection. The external facts of his life painted a picture of hopelessness. I instructed him to take 1 minute, just 1 minute, before falling asleep each night, to feel as though he were already employed in a position that gave him satisfaction and financial abundance. I told him not to visualize the process of getting the job, but rather to feel the naturalness of already having it. He was to imagine a scene that implied the fulfillment of this desire. Perhaps a friend congratulating him on his new position, or the feeling of depositing his ample paycheck, or the satisfaction of contributing meaningfully to his workplace. The scene itself was not important. What mattered was the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the conviction that what he desired was already his. For several nights he practiced this exercise faithfully. On the 5th day, he received a phone call from a company he had never applied to. A mutual acquaintance had recommended him for a position that perfectly matched his skills and paid considerably more than he had ever earned before. Within a week he was employed. What 2 years of external effort could not accomplish, 5 minutes of properly directed imagination achieved effortlessly. Was this a coincidence? Was it luck? I tell you it was neither. It was the law of your own being made manifest. For when you enter into an imaginal scene and make it real through the power of feeling, you have activated forces beyond your conscious understanding. Forces that reality to conform to your dominant impression. The scriptures tell us faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. This faith is not mere wishful thinking or intellectual acceptance of a doctrine. Faith is the feeling of possession, the assurance that what is not yet visible to your mortal eye already exists in the reality of your imagination. And your imagination, being God in action within you, cannot fail to objectify that which you have faithfully embodied in feeling. Some of you may be thinking, but Neville, 1 minute seems too short a time to change the conditions of my life that have persisted for years. To this I would say you underestimate the power of your own consciousness. It is not the duration of time spent in your imaginal act that determines its efficacy, but the intensity of feeling, the completeness of your immersion in the state desired. A single match, properly struck, can set an entire forest ablaze. Similarly, a single moment of perfectly focused imagination, suffused with the feeling tone of reality, can set in motion the forces that will inevitably result in the manifestation of your desire, regardless of how impossible it may seem to your rational mind. The great secret that the mystics and sages have always known is that creation is finished. All that you could ever desire to be, do, or have already exists in what I call the infinite states of consciousness. Your journey is not one of creating anew, but of selecting and embodying the state that corresponds to your desire. And this selection is done through the faculty of attention controlled by your imagination. When I instruct you to take 1 minute to feel yourself into the state of your wish fulfilled, I am giving you the key to unlocking the treasure house of infinity. For in that 1 minute, if properly employed, you transcend time itself. You step out of the limitations of your current state and enter a new state of consciousness, and your outer world must reshape itself to mirror this inner change. There was a woman in one of my lectures some years ago who had been diagnosed with an incurable heart condition. The physicians had given her perhaps 6 months to live. After hearing me speak on this principle, she decided to take 1 minute each day to feel the joy and gratitude of being perfectly healthy. She imagined hearing her doctor say, "I cannot understand it. Your heart shows no sign of disease whatsoever." She felt the relief, the boundless gratitude, the sheer joy of this pronouncement. 3 months later, upon her regular examination, her doctor was baffled. The test showed no trace of the previous condition. Further examinations confirmed that her heart was functioning perfectly. The medical community called it a spontaneous remission, an unexplainable healing. But she and I knew better. It was the perfect working of law. She had selected a different state of consciousness, and her body conformed to that selection. You see, the outer world is nothing more than the projection of your inner assumptions. Change the assumption, and you change the projection. It cannot be otherwise, for consciousness is the only reality, and your assumptions determine which state of consciousness you occupy. The 1 minute practice I am giving you this evening is so simple that many will dismiss it as too elementary to produce significant results. Yet its very simplicity is what makes it so powerful. You need no special equipment, no esoteric knowledge, no years of disciplined practice. You need only your imagination and the willingness to feel the naturalness of your desire fulfilled. Here is how you employ this 1 minute practice. First, clarify what you truly desire. Not the means to the fulfillment, but the end itself. If you desire wealth, what does wealth mean to you? Is it a specific sum in your bank account? Is it the freedom to travel? Is it the ability to help others financially? Clarify the essence of your desire. Next, create a scene that would imply the fulfillment of this desire. If your desire is for perfect health, perhaps imagine a friend commenting on how vibrant and energetic you appear. If your desire is for a harmonious relationship, perhaps imagine yourself and your beloved sharing a moment of perfect understanding and joy. The scene should be brief, easily visualized, and imply that your desire is already fulfilled. Then set aside 1 minute, preferably just before sleep, when your mind is naturally relaxed and receptive, and completely immerse yourself in this scene. Do not merely visualize it as if watching a movie. Enter into it fully. Be a participant, not a spectator. Feel the solidity of objects you would touch in this scene. Hear the sounds that would be present. Most importantly, feel the emotions that would be yours if this imaginal act were your present reality. For that 1 minute, let nothing disturb your concentration. If your attention wanders, gently bring it back to your scene. Infuse the scene with the absolute conviction that this is now reality. Feel the naturalness, the of-courseness of your desire fulfilled. Then release the scene completely. Do not spend the rest of your day wondering when or how your desire will manifest. Remember, in the reality of imagination, which is the only reality, your desire is already fulfilled. The outer manifestation is merely the shadow, the echo of what you have already accepted as real in consciousness. Let me tell you of another student who applied this principle to what seemed an impossible situation. This gentleman was in his late 50s and had been passed over for promotion repeatedly in favor of younger colleagues. He had specialized knowledge that was valuable to his company, but management saw him as too close to retirement to invest in his advancement. After learning this principle, he took 1 minute each night to feel the satisfaction of being called into his supervisor's office and being informed of his promotion to regional director, a position 2 levels above his current role. He felt the handshake, heard the congratulatory words, felt the surge of validation that would accompany such an event. Within 3 weeks, a corporate restructuring was announced. The regional offices were being reorganized, and to everyone's surprise, including his own, he was appointed regional director. When he spoke with the executive who had selected him for the role, he was told, "We need someone with your specific experience and knowledge base to guide this transition." The decision became obvious once we reviewed the requirements. What appeared impossible, a double promotion for a man considered too senior for advancement, manifested effortlessly once he had planted the seed in consciousness through his 1 minute imaginal act. The Bible tells us the kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed, which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it is the largest of garden plants. Your 1 minute imaginal act is this mustard seed, seemingly insignificant in its brevity, yet containing within it the full power of creation, which when planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness, must grow into the full manifestation of your desire. Many of you have been taught that worthwhile achievements require struggle, that you must earn your good through labor and sacrifice. This is the thinking of the world, and it has kept humanity in bondage for centuries. I am offering you freedom from this bondage through the recognition that consciousness, not action, is the foundational creative power. Right action will follow naturally from right consciousness. When you have truly assumed the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will be automatically guided to take whatever steps are necessary for its manifestation in the outer world. But these actions will not be the strained efforts of someone trying to make something happen. They will be the natural, almost effortless expressions of your state of being. Some of you may be wondering about timing, how long, you ask, between my imaginal act and its fulfillment in the outer world. This is a question that cannot be answered with precision, for it depends on many factors: the naturalness of the state to your particular consciousness, the degree to which your desire conforms to what I call the law of assumption, and the time required for the reshaping of external circumstances. But know this, the manifestation will occur at precisely the right moment, in what Scripture calls the fullness of time. Your task is not to be concerned with when, but to remain faithful to the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. For the very concern about timing betrays a lack of faith in the reality of your imaginal act. I have had experiences where manifestation occurred within hours of my imaginal act, and others where months passed before the seed I had planted flowered into outer reality. But in every case, the manifestation came not because I made it happen through anxious monitoring, but because the law of consciousness is infallible. What you assume to be true with feeling must objectify itself in your world. You might ask, can this principle be applied to seemingly impossible situations, to the healing of supposedly incurable diseases, to the transformation of seemingly fixed circumstances, to the manifestation of desires that reason says cannot be fulfilled? And I answer you with an emphatic yes. For what appears impossible to your rational mind is merely a limitation imposed by your current beliefs about what is possible. When you shift your consciousness through the power of your controlled imagination, you transcend these limitations. You align yourself with the creative power that fashioned the universe. And to this power, which is your own wonderful human imagination, nothing is impossible. I know a man who was told by multiple medical specialists that he would never walk unassisted again after a devastating accident. Following the principle I am sharing with you tonight, he spent 1 minute each day feeling the naturalness, the joy of walking freely, feeling the ground beneath his feet, experiencing the ease of movement that had been his before the accident. Against all medical prognosis, within 6 months he was walking without assistance. His physicians were baffled, attributing his recovery to some anomaly in their initial diagnosis. But he knew the truth. He had selected a different state of consciousness, and his body had reshaped itself to conform to this new selection. This principle applies not only to individual transformation, but to the reshaping of relationships as well. If you are experiencing discord with another person, do not try to change them through external effort or persuasion. Instead, take your 1 minute to imagine an interaction with this person that embodies the harmony you desire. Feel the naturalness of understanding between you, the ease of communication, the mutual respect and appreciation. Do this faithfully, and you will be amazed at the transformation that occurs. Not because you have manipulated the other person, but because you have transformed your own consciousness regarding the relationship. And since all relationships exist in consciousness, the outer expression of the relationship must conform to your inner assumption. A woman once came to me in great distress over her marriage. For years, her husband had been emotionally distant, critical, and unaffectionate. They had tried counseling without success, and she was contemplating divorce as her only option for happiness. I instructed her to take 1 minute before sleep each night to feel the joy and gratitude of being in a loving, harmonious marriage with this same man. I told her not to imagine a different man or a different marriage, but this same relationship transformed by her shift in consciousness. She imagined her husband looking at her with love and appreciation, speaking words of affection, sharing moments of genuine connection. She felt the relief, the happiness, the fulfillment of being in such a relationship. Within 3 weeks, subtle changes began to appear in her husband's behavior. He became more attentive, less critical. She began initiating conversations rather than retreating into silence. Within 2 months, their marriage had transformed to such a degree that she could hardly believe this was the same relationship that had caused her such anguish. Did her 1 minute practice somehow control or manipulate her husband against his will? Not at all. What it did was shift her consciousness regarding the relationship. And since consciousness is the only reality, the outer picture, including her husband's behavior, had to adjust to reflect this inner change. This principle of the 1 minute imaginal act applies with equal power to conditions that appear to involve multiple individuals or complex social structures. If you desire a particular position in your company, do not concern yourself with the politics of advancement or the competition from others. Take your 1 minute to feel the satisfaction, the sense of accomplishment, the naturalness of already occupying that position. If you seek financial abundance in a challenging economic environment, do not focus on the statistics of scarcity or the limitations of your current income. Use your 1 minute to feel the security, the freedom, the joy of having abundant resources, regardless of what your bank statement currently shows. The outer circumstances, no matter how apparently fixed or immutable, are but shadows, reflections of past assumptions. Change the assumption in your 1 minute practice, and the reflection must change in accordance with this new assumption. This is not wishful thinking. It is the operation of immutable law. Many spiritual traditions teach that creation is complete, that all possible states and conditions already exist in what might be called a fourth dimensional reality. Your task is not to create what you desire, but to select, through the power of your focused imagination, the particular state that corresponds to your desire, and to enter that state through the feeling of its reality. This is what Scripture means by before you call, I will answer. Your desire, in its fulfilled state, already exists as a present fact in consciousness. Your imaginal act is not creating it anew, but claiming what already exists in the realm of infinite possibility. The story of the fig tree in the gospel provides a perfect illustration of this principle. Jesus, seeing a fig tree without fruit, spoke to it, saying, "No man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever." The disciples noted that the tree appeared unchanged at that moment. But the following day, as they passed by, they saw that the fig tree had withered from the roots. This is how your 1-minute imaginal act operates. In the moment of your focused imagination, you may see no outer change in your circumstances. But the seed has been planted, the root has been established in consciousness, and the outer manifestation must follow, as surely as the withering of the fig tree followed Jesus' word. Some of you may be thinking, but I have tried visualization before without results. To this I would say, there is a world of difference between mere visualization as a mental exercise and the complete immersion in the feeling of the wish fulfilled that I am describing to you tonight. Visualization without feeling is sterile and powerless. It is the feeling that gives life to your imaginal act, the feeling of naturalness, of alreadiness, of complete acceptance that what you are imagining is now reality. In that feeling lies the transformative power that reshapes your outer world. Moreover, many who practice visualization continue to grant reality to their current limitations. They see their visualization as something that may happen in the future if they are persistent enough or lucky enough. This divided consciousness, one part affirming the desired state, another part affirming the reality of its absence, neutralizes the creative power of their imaginal act. When I instruct you to take 1 minute to feel the wish fulfilled, I am asking you to temporarily but completely set aside your awareness of its absence in your outer world. For that 1 minute, you must grant your imaginal act the same degree of reality, the same sense of solidity and naturalness that you normally grant to your physical surroundings. This requires practice, for we have been conditioned since childhood to trust the evidence of our senses above all else. But with persistence, you will develop the ability to immerse yourself so completely in your imaginal scene that for the duration of your practice, it is more real to you than the physical world around you. And when you achieve this state, even for 1 minute, you have planted a seed that cannot fail to flower into manifestation. For consciousness is the only reality, and what you have made real in consciousness must by law become real in your outer experience. Let me share with you one more illustration of this principle in action. A dear friend of mine had a lifelong dream of owning a particular type of home in a specific neighborhood, a neighborhood where properties rarely came on the market, and they did, commanded prices far beyond her financial reach. By all rational assessment, her desire was impossible to fulfill. I instructed her to take 1 minute each day to feel the joy of already living in this home. Not to visualize how she might acquire it or to worry about the financing, but simply to feel the satisfaction of ownership, to feel herself moving through the rooms, enjoying the garden, welcoming friends to this beloved space. For several weeks she practiced faithfully, and then, as often happens, when the seed has been properly planted, she largely forgot about her formal practice, as the feeling of ownership became natural to her consciousness. 6 months later, she was contacted by an elderly woman who owned precisely the type of home my friend had been imagining in exactly the neighborhood she desired. The woman, who was moving to another state to be near her children, had specific ideas about who should live in her home. She wanted someone who would love it as she had, who would maintain its character and beauty. Through a series of circumstances that appeared coincidental but were in fact the natural outworking of consciousness, this woman offered my friend the opportunity to purchase the home at significantly below market value, with financing terms that made it accessible despite my friend's limited resources. Was this luck? Was it chance? I tell you, it was the perfect operation of law. My friend had planted the seed in consciousness through her 1 minute practice. She had selected a different state, the state of being the owner of this type of home, and her outer reality reshaped itself to conform to this inner selection. The circumstances that brought about this manifestation appeared natural, even coincidental. This is always the case. The bridge of incidents leads from your current state to the fulfillment of your desire will appear perfectly natural. when viewed from the outside. It is only when you understand the law of consciousness that you recognize these coincidences as the orderly fulfillment of what you have established in imagination. As we draw towards the conclusion of our time together, I want to emphasize that this principle I have shared with you, the principle of the 1-minute imaginal act, is not for special occasions or dramatic transformations. It is meant to be the normal, natural way you approach every aspect of your life. Just as you would not attempt to drive from New York to Los Angeles without first establishing Los Angeles as your destination, so you should not move through life without first establishing in consciousness the states you wish to occupy. Your 1-minute practice is simply the means by which you establish these states, planting the seeds that must grow into manifestation. Some will say that this approach to life is impractical, that it ignores the hard realities of existence. To them I say, what you call hard realities are merely the hardened impressions of past thoughts and assumptions. They appear solid and immutable only because you continue to grant them reality through your attention and belief. When you shift your attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled, even for 1 minute of complete immersion, you have begun the process of dissolving these hardened impressions and replacing them with the impression of your new assumption. And since impression is followed by expression, as surely as summer follows spring, your outer world must reshape itself to express this new impression. Do not be discouraged if the full manifestation of your desire does not appear immediately following your 1-minute practice. Remember the fig tree, which did not wither in the moment of Jesus' word, but had changed from the roots, a change that became visible the following day. Your imaginal act may likewise be working from the roots, reshaping circumstances that are not yet visible to your physical senses. The interval between your imaginal act and its fulfillment in the outer world is a period for faith, not the faith that hopes or wishes, but the faith that knows with certainty that what has been established in consciousness must objectify itself in experience. This faith is not belief in something that may or may not happen. It is the deep knowing that creation is finished, that what you have felt as real in consciousness is already a fact in the only reality that matters. As you leave this gathering tonight, I urge you to put this principle into immediate practice. Select a desire, something you truly want to be, to do, or to have. Create a brief scene that would imply the fulfillment of this desire. Then tonight before you sleep, take just 1 minute to enter fully into this scene, to feel its reality with all the power of your emotional being. Do not approach this as a test of the principle, for doubt and testing imply the possibility of failure. Instead, approach it with the innocent wonder of a child who knows that what is imagined with complete faith is already in the process of becoming reality. 1 minute properly employed in the feeling of the wish fulfilled contains within it the power to transform your life in ways that may now seem miraculous or impossible. For in that 1 minute you are engaging the creative power of the universe, your own wonderful human imagination, and directing it consciously towards the fulfillment of your desire. And when you truly understand and apply this principle, you will know the truth of the scripture. All things are possible to him that believeth. For belief, in its deepest sense, is not intellectual acceptance, but emotional surrender to the reality of that which is not yet seen with the physical eye. Take your 1 minute tonight and plant the seed of a new reality in the fertile soil of your consciousness. Nurture it with the waters of faith, not the faith that hopes, but the faith that knows. And watch as the universe rearranges itself to accommodate your new concept of self, your new assumption of what is possible. For even the impossible will manifest for you when you have properly directed the creative power of your consciousness, even if that direction occupies but a single minute of perfect imaginative control. In that minute lies the key to freedom, to fulfillment, to the conscious creation of a life that reflects your highest desires. The choice is yours. The power is yours. The 1 minute is yours. Use it wisely, use it with complete faith in the creative power of your own wonderful human imagination. And prepare yourself for miracles, not as rare and unusual events, but as the natural expression of properly directed consciousness. For this is the promise and the law As within, so without. As above, so below. What you establish in consciousness through your 1-minute imaginal act must manifest in your world. It cannot fail, for consciousness is the only reality, and its expression in the outer world is governed by immutable law. Go now in the knowledge of your own creative power. Take your 1 minute, and with it, reshape your world. For even the impossible will manifest for you when you understand and apply this simple yet profound truth. Imagination creates reality. And a single minute of properly directed imagination contains within it the power to transform your life beyond all current limitation. Remember always that you are not a helpless victim of circumstances, but the creative center of your own existence. In your consciousness, in your I am, lies the power that fashioned the universe. Use this power consciously, use it lovingly, use it faithfully, and watch as even the impossible becomes your living experience. For when you know that you are the operant power in your universe, that your consciousness is God in action, you will never again be content to live at the mercy of circumstances or to accept limitations that can be transcended through the proper direction of your wonderful human imagination. Take your 1 minute tonight, feel the wish fulfilled, and step boldly into the unlimited potential that is your divine inheritance as a conscious creator in this magnificent universe. I tell you with absolute certainty that your inner speech, that which you tell yourself when no one else is listening, is molding your world in ways you cannot begin to imagine. These words spoken in the quiet of your mind are more powerful than any force in the visible world. They are the unseen architects of your destiny. For just 24 hours, I challenge you to become aware of your inner conversation. Listen to what you are telling yourself from moment to moment. Are you speaking of limitation? Are you rehearsing your failures? Are you constantly affirming illness, lack, or impossibility? If so, you are using the creative power of your word against yourself. Instead, for 24 hours, speak to yourself only in terms of the ideal you wish to embody. Speak from the end as though what you desire is already an accomplished fact. This is the secret of manifestation that has been veiled in mystical language throughout the ages. When you awaken in the morning, let your first thought be, I am blessed beyond measure. Everything I desire is already mine. Feel the truth of these words. Let them sink into your consciousness like rain into parched soil. Your mind is that soil, and your words are the seeds from which your future will grow. As you prepare for your day, continue this transformed inner conversation. If you desire financial abundance, do not say to yourself, I hope someday I will have enough. Instead, declare with feeling, I am now abundantly supplied. Money flows to me effortlessly from expected and unexpected sources. Do not concern yourself with the how. Your work is not to determine the means, but to establish the end in your consciousness. If you seek improved health, cease speaking of your body in terms of its limitations or ailments. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as though you are vibrantly healthy. I am filled with energy. My body is strong, resilient, and functions in perfect harmony. The creative power within you doesn't analyze whether your statements align with physical evidence. It simply accepts what you decree and proceeds to bring it into manifestation. In your relationships, transform how you speak to yourself about others. If there is someone with whom you experience conflict, change your inner conversation about them. Instead of rehearsing grievances, speak to yourself of that person as though they already embody the qualities you wish to experience. They are thoughtful and understanding. Our communication is clear and harmonious. Remember, the outer conversation merely reflects what has already been established in your inner conversation. In your career or vocation, speak to yourself as though you already occupy the position you desire, possess the skills you seek, or have achieved the recognition you yearn for. I am excelling in my work. My contributions are valued and rewarded. I am fulfilling my purpose through my daily activities. Now, I must emphasize that this is not positive thinking as it is commonly understood. This is far more profound. You are not trying to convince yourself of something against evidence. Rather, you are exercising your divine prerogative to choose the consciousness from which you operate. You are selecting the state of being from which your reality will unfold. Your consciousness is the only reality. The world you experience is simply consciousness objectified. Change your consciousness, your inner talking, and you must change your world. This is law. For 24 hours, refuse to speak to yourself of problems. There are no problems apart from your conviction that they exist. What appears as a problem is merely a situation awaiting your new conception of it. Speak to yourself from the consciousness of the solution already achieved and watch as the so-called problem dissolves before your eyes. I recall a woman who attended my lecture some years ago. She had been struggling with chronic illness for nearly a decade. After hearing these principles, she decided to change her inner conversation for just one day. Instead of her habitual thoughts of "I am sick," "I will never recover," "no treatment shame," she began to speak to herself as though she were already whole. "I am perfectly well. My body knows how to heal itself. I am stronger each day." She reported that by midday she experienced a noticeable shift in her energy. By evening, symptoms that had plagued her for years had diminished significantly. Within a week of maintaining this new inner conversation, she was able to resume activities she had abandoned years before. Her physicians were baffled, but she understood the principle at work. She had changed her inner world, and thus her outer world reflected this change. Another gentleman used this practice to transform his financial situation. For years he had spoken to himself as a person of limited means, constantly affirming, "I can't afford that. I never have enough. Money is hard to come by." For 24 hours, he disciplined himself to speak as a wealthy man would speak. "I am financially free. I am wonderfully wealthy. I can afford anything that truly matters to me." He shared with me that on that very day, he received an unexpected check in the mail, a refund from an overpayment he had made years earlier and had completely forgotten about. More significantly, opportunities began to present themselves in the following weeks that allowed him to increase his income substantially. The change in his circumstances directly reflected the change in his inner conversation. Let me clarify something of vital importance. When I speak of your inner conversation, I am not referring merely to affirmations repeated mechanically. I am speaking of that constant stream of thoughts, that mental chatter that accompanies you throughout your day. This is the word that was in the beginning of all creation in your world. For this practice to transform your life, your new inner conversation must be felt. It must be imbued with the emotion of already being and having what you desire. Feeling is the secret, the very fuel of manifestation. Your feeling is your faith, your conviction, and it is according to your faith that it is done in you. As you move through this 24-hour period, you will likely notice your old patterns of speech attempting to reassert themselves. This is natural. Do not fight them or condemn yourself when this happens. Simply notice them and gently but firmly replace them with your new chosen conversation. Remember, you are breaking a lifetime habit of speaking to yourself from the standpoint of limitation. Be patient with yourself, but be persistent. Each time you catch yourself speaking the old language, it is a victory, for you have become aware. And awareness is the first step to transformation. Throughout this 24 hours, pay particular attention to how you speak to yourself when faced with unexpected situations. It is in these moments that we most readily revert to habitual patterns. If something occurs that would normally trigger anxiety or frustration, pause before allowing your inner conversation to fall into familiar ruts. Then deliberately choose words that affirm your ideal, not your fears. For instance, if you find yourself stuck in traffic when you're already running late, resist the temptation to say to yourself, "This always happens to me. Nothing ever works out. I'm going to be in trouble." Instead, speak to yourself as one for whom all things work together for good. This delay serves a perfect purpose. I am exactly where I need to be. All is well, and all manner of things are well. The power of speaking to yourself in this transformed way for 24 hours is that it interrupts the momentum of all thought patterns. It creates a new groove, a new pathway in consciousness that, once established, becomes easier to travel. One day of vigilance can create a shift that alters the trajectory of your life. I want to address a question that may have arisen in your mind. Is this not self-deception? Am I not lying to myself when I speak as though I have what physical evidence clearly shows I do not have? This question reveals a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of reality. The physical world you perceive is not the cause. It is the effect. It is not the beginning. It is the end result of consciousness. When you speak to yourself from the state of having your desire fulfilled, you are not lying, you are creating. You are exercising the same power that has created everything from invisible thought to visible form. In Scripture, we are told that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Your new inner conversation is that substance, that evidence in the unseen realm of cause. It precedes the manifestation in the visible world of effects. Speaking to yourself from the consciousness of already being or having what you desire is not self-deception. It is the highest form of truth, for it acknowledges the creative principle of the universe. For these 24 hours, I urge you to adopt the mindset that your word is law. What you decree in the privacy of your mind must come to pass in your outer experience. This is not arrogance or magical thinking. It is simply acknowledging the creative principle that operates through all of us. I am is the self-definition of the infinite. When you say I am, you are invoking the creative power of the universe. Be exceedingly careful then what you attach to this powerful phrase. For 24 hours, use I am only to define yourself in terms of what you wish to be, do, and have. Instead of I am tired, say I'm energized. Rather than I am worried, declare I am confident all is working out perfectly. In place of I am stuck, affirm I am continuously moving forward toward my goals. Now, a practical suggestion for implementing this 24-hour experiment. Begin by writing down some of the habitual phrases you catch yourself saying internally. Next to each one, write a new phrase that reflects your desired state. Keep this list with you as a reference throughout the day. For example, old, I never have enough time. New, I have all the time I need to accomplish what truly matters. Old, why does this always happen to me? New, everything that happens serves my highest good. Old, I'm not good at handling money. New, I am a wise and prosperous steward of abundance. Old, no one appreciates what I do. New, my contributions are recognized and valued by others. As you engage in this practice, you may discover that certain areas of your life are more challenging than others when it comes to transforming your inner conversation. Pay special attention to these areas, for they often hold the key to your greatest transformation. The resistance you feel is merely the old concept of yourself fighting for survival. Some of you may be wondering how this practice relates to your interactions with others. After all, we don't live in isolation. We are constantly engaged in outer conversation as well. Here is a profound truth. Your outer conversations with others are actually reflections of your habitual inner conversations. When you change how you speak to yourself about others and your relationship to them, you will naturally find your outer conversations transforming as well. You need make no direct effort to change how you speak to others. As your inner conversation shifts, your outer expression will align itself accordingly. For 24 hours, speak to yourself about others as though they already embody the qualities you wish to experience from them. If you have a supervisor you find difficult, rather than internally rehearsing their faults, speak to yourself of them as understanding, supportive, and appreciative. If you have a child who is struggling, speak to yourself of them as confident, capable, and thriving. Do not be concerned if you do not yet believe what you are saying to yourself. Remember, you are not reporting what is. You are creating what will be. Your faithfulness to your new inner conversation, despite all evidence to the contrary, is the measure of your faith. And again, it is done unto you according to your faith. I want to emphasize a point that many miss when first encountering this principle. The power lies not in the words themselves, but in the consciousness from which they spring. Words are merely the vessels that carry your consciousness. Speak to yourself not just with new words, but from a new state of being. This requires the use of your imagination, the greatest creative power you possess. As you speak these new words to yourself, see yourself as the person who would naturally think such thoughts. Feel what that person would feel. Move through your day with the attitude and bearing of one for whom these words are the natural expression of their being. For 24 hours, live from the assumption that what you desire is already yours. This is what it means to pray without ceasing. Not to beseech an external deity, but to maintain an inner conversation that aligns with your desires already fulfilled. I recall a young man who applied this principle to transform his career. He had been in the same position for years, passed over repeatedly for promotion. His inner conversation was filled with resentment and defeat. They don't value me. I'm stuck here forever. Others get the opportunities I deserve. For 24 hours, he disciplined himself to speak to himself as though he were already in the position he desired. I am an invaluable asset to this company. My contributions are recognized and rewarded. I serve in a capacity that utilizes my full potential. Within days, he was called into his supervisor's office and informed of a restructuring that created a new position, one that perfectly matched his skills and offered significantly more responsibility and compensation. What had changed? Not the external circumstances, but his inner conversation about those circumstances. As you move through these 24 hours, you may find yourself wondering how to handle thoughts about the past. Many of us have habitual inner conversations that revisit past disappointments, failures, or hurts. For this period, I urge you to speak to yourself about your past in a new way. Instead of interpreting past events as limitations or justifications for current conditions, speak of them as the perfect preparation for your current good fortune. Everything in my past has equipped me for the abundance I now experience. Every challenge has strengthened me. Every setback has redirected me to something better. This is not denying or suppressing painful experiences. It is reinterpreting them from a higher perspective. It is recognizing that consciousness is the only reality, and you are free at any moment to choose the consciousness from which you view your life. Let me share another dimension of this practice that many find transformative. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as if you are God speaking to you. For indeed, your I am is God individualized. When you say I am blessed, it is God declaring blessing through you. When you say I am strong, it is God expressing strength as you. This understanding removes any sense of untruth or pretense from your new inner conversation. You are not fabricating a reality. You are allowing the highest truth to express through you. You are claiming your divine inheritance as a creative being made in the image of the Creator. As this 24-hour period progresses, you may begin to notice subtle shifts in your external world. People may respond to you differently. Opportunities may present themselves unexpectedly. Solutions to long-standing problems may suddenly become clear. These are the first fruits of your transformed inner conversation. Do not, however, become preoccupied with looking for results. Your work is to maintain your new inner conversation regardless of appearances. The manifestation follows the inner word. It does not precede it. Keep your focus on being faithful to your new way of speaking to yourself, and let the outer pictures rearrange themselves in their own time and manner. I must address a question that often arises. What if I maintain this new inner conversation for 24 hours and nothing changes? My answer is simple. Something has changed. You have changed. You have interrupted patterns of thought that may have dominated your consciousness for decades. You have proven to yourself that you can choose your inner conversation rather than being at its mercy. Moreover, manifestation does not always occur instantaneously in the visible world. Some seeds sprout quickly. Others require more time. But all seeds, when planted in fertile soil and given the proper conditions, must grow. It is law. Your word, planted in the soil of consciousness and watered with faith, must produce after its kind. If at the end of 24 hours you do not see the complete manifestation of your desire, do not be discouraged. Instead, be encouraged that you have begun a new pattern that, if maintained, must produce the conditions that correspond to it. Consider extending your commitment for another 24 hours and then another. Many who have practiced this principle find that 24 hours of vigilant attention to their inner conversation creates a momentum, makes the second one, that's 20 easier, and the third easier still. What begins as an exercise becomes a natural way of being. For these 24 hours, I urge you to be especially attentive to the feeling that accompanies your inner conversation. Words without feeling are empty shells. It is the emotion that gives them life and power. As you speak to yourself in this new way, cultivate the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of already being who you wish to be and having what you desire to have. Gratitude is a powerful catalyst in this process. When you speak to yourself with gratitude for what is not yet visible to the senses, you affirm your faith in the reality of your inner world over the temporary conditions of the outer. I am so grateful for my perfect health carries infinitely more creative power than I want to be healthy, or even I will be healthy. Throughout these 24 hours, you may encounter situations that seem to contradict your new inner conversation. A bill may arrive when you are affirming abundance. A physical symptom may intensify when you are speaking of perfect health. A relationship may appear to worsen when you are declaring harmony. In these moments, your commitment will be tested. The evidence of your senses will argue persuasively against your new internal dialogue. This is when you must stand firm in the knowledge that what you are observing externally is the outpicturing of past conversations, not the reality of the present moment. Speak to yourself as though what you are observing has no power to persist in the face of your new consciousness. This appearance is merely the shadow of former thinking. It has no substance or permanence. What I am now declaring within myself is the new reality that must replace it. Remember that creation is finished. All possible states exist now. You are not creating something new. You are selecting through your inner conversation which completed state you will occupy. When you understand this truth, you realize there is no waiting for your good to be created or to arrive from somewhere else. It exists now. And your inner conversation is the method by which you move into that state. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as one who dwells in the state of wish fulfilled. Speak with the quiet confidence of one who knows rather than the desperate longing of one who wishes. There is a world of difference between saying I want to be successful and I am successful. The first speaks from lack. The second speaks from fulfillment. As we continue this exploration of the power of your inner conversation, I want to address the matter of persistence. Some desires manifest quickly with a change in your inner dialogue. Others require more sustained attention. Do not be discouraged if, after 24 hours, you do not see the complete manifestation of your desire in the outer world. The seed has been planted and nothing can prevent its growth except your return to the old conversation. Just as a farmer does not dig up his seed each day to check on its progress, do not dig up your way reverting to the old patterns of speech that created the conditions you wish to change. There is a perfect timing to all manifestation that your conscious mind may not comprehend. Trust the process. Maintain your new inner conversation beyond these initial 24 hours and watch as the universe rearranges itself to accommodate your new concept of yourself. I recall a woman who applied this principle to transform her experience of chronic pain. For years, her inner conversation had been dominated by statements like, my pain is unbearable. Nothing helps. I'll always suffer. For 24 hours, she disciplined herself to speak to herself differently. My body knows how to heal itself. I am comfortable and at ease. Every day I feel better than the day before. She reported that by the end of the 24 hours, she had experienced brief periods of complete relief for the first time in years. As she continued this new inner conversation in the days that followed, these periods of relief grew longer and more frequent until, within weeks, the pain that had dominated her life for a decade was only an occasional minor discomfort. What changed? Not her physical condition initially, but her consciousness about that condition. As consciousness shifted, the body, which is only an obedient servant to consciousness, gradually conformed to the new assumption. As you engage in this 24-hour experiment, you are literally rewiring your brain. Neuroscience confirms what spiritual masters have taught for millennia, that focused attention changes the physical structure of the brain. When you persistently speak to yourself in a new way, you are creating new neural pathways that, with repetition, become the path of least resistance for your thoughts. This understanding should encourage you to persist beyond the initial 24 hours. What begins as a conscious exercise becomes, with practice, your natural way of thinking. The new inner conversation, at first maintained with effort, eventually becomes automatic, just as your old limiting conversations once were. For these 24 hours, I urge you to be especially vigilant during the drowsy states of consciousness, the moments just before sleep and just upon awakening. These twilight states provide direct access to the subconscious mind, which is the creative power that brings your assumptions into experience. As you drift off to sleep, speak to yourself as though your desire is already fulfilled. Let this be the last conversation you have before entering the sleep state. Similarly, in those first moments of awakening, before the analytical mind fully engages, re-establish this same inner conversation. These marginal states of consciousness are incredibly fertile for planting the seeds of your new reality. What is impressed upon the subconscious during these states takes root deeply and manifests with remarkable speed and fidelity. Throughout this 24-hour period, you may notice that certain phrases or thoughts have more emotional impact than others. Pay attention to these. They often indicate key states of consciousness that, when shifted, create the most significant changes in your outer experience. For example, you may find that speaking to yourself as financially secure produces a stronger emotional response than speaking of yourself as physically energetic. This would suggest that your consciousness about finances has been a more dominant limiting factor than your consciousness about health. Focus additional attention on maintaining your new conversation in these emotionally charged areas. I want to address something that often confuses those new to this practice. You may wonder, should I speak to myself about specific manifestations or about general states of being? The answer is both, in proper proportion. Your inner conversation should include specific statements that reflect your desires. My income is now $10,000 per month, or I live in my beautiful dream home by the ocean. But these should be balanced with statements about the state of consciousness that would naturally include these manifestations. I am abundantly supplied, or I dwell in perfect environments that reflect my inner harmony. The specific statements give direction to your creative energy. The general statements establish the consciousness from which all related manifestations can naturally flow. Both are valuable components of your transformed inner conversation. As you move through this 24-hour period, you may encounter people who seem determined to pull you back into old patterns of thinking and speaking. They may focus on problems, limitations, or negative possibilities. In these interactions, maintain your new inner conversation with even greater vigilance. While they speak of what is wrong or impossible, speak to yourself of what is right and very possible. While they focus on lack, speak to yourself of abundance. Do not argue or try to convert them. Simply maintain your position in consciousness regardless of their influence. Remember, everyone in your life is a reflection of some aspect of your consciousness. As you transform your inner conversation, you will gradually find that others either change how they interact with you or disappear from your experience to be replaced by those who resonate with your new state of being. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as though you are the source of all your experience rather than the victim of it. This is not about assuming blame, but claiming power. I draw to myself perfect circumstances. I am the attractor of my experience. Everything in my world reflects my consciousness. This understanding liberates you from feeling at the mercy of people and conditions. It places the creative power where it belongs, within your own consciousness, expressed through your inner conversation. As this 24-hour experiment unfolds, pay attention to how your outer speech begins to align with your new inner conversation. You may find yourself spontaneously speaking words to others that reflect your transformed consciousness. This is a sign that your new way of thinking is taking root deeply. Do not force this alignment. Let it unfold naturally. Your work is with your inner conversation only. As that shifts, your outer expression will follow suit without conscious effort on your part. I want to share one more powerful dimension of this practice. For 24 hours, when speaking to yourself about desired states or manifestations, use the phrase, "Isn't it wonderful?" as a prefix. Isn't it wonderful that I am now in perfect health? Isn't it wonderful that my relationships are harmonious and fulfilling? Isn't it wonderful that abundance flows to me effortlessly? This phrase evokes the feeling of pleasant surprise and gratitude that accompanies the manifestation of a desire. It bridges the gap between your present awareness and the consciousness of having what you seek. It imbues your inner conversation with the emotional tone that accelerates manifestation. As we approach the conclusion of this exploration, I remind you that this 24-hour practice is not merely a technique for getting what it is, an introduction to a new way of being in the world. It is an invitation to live consciously from the creative center of your being, rather than reactively from the circumference of conditions. The transformation of your inner conversation is the transformation of your life. What you habitually say to yourself determines what you will experience. Choose your words as though they are seeds from which your future will grow, because they are precisely that. For 24 hours, speak to yourself as the person you aspire to be. Feel what that person would feel. Think what they would think. Move through your day with the quiet confidence of one who knows that their word is law in their universe. Then watch as your outer world begins its faithful reflection of this new inner reality. For the outer must conform to the inner, it has no choice. This is the immutable law of consciousness. I leave you with this challenge and this promise: give 24 hours to the vigilant observation and transformation of your inner conversation, and you will take the first step toward a completely new experience of life. The world you will begin to encounter will bear the unmistakable imprint of your transformed consciousness. And as you discover the creative power of your inner word, you will understand the true meaning of that ancient statement. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. For you will know from your own experience that your word, your inner conversation, is indeed the beginning of all that appears in your world. I tell you with complete certainty, the thing you have been seeking is, at this very moment, seeking you. The desire that burns within your heart was planted there by the divine, and that same divinity is now orchestrating all events, all circumstances, all seeming obstacles, to deliver unto you the perfect expression of that desire. Let us begin with the fundamental truth, a truth that many of you have heard me speak of before, but which bears repeating, for it is the foundation upon which all manifestation rests. You are God, not a part of God, not a creation separate from God, but God individualized. I and my Father are one, said the greatest teacher who ever walked this earth. He did not say, I and my Father are two, working together. No, he claimed complete unity with the divine power that creates and sustains all things. And what is God? God is your own wonderful human imagination. That is the creative power in the universe. There is no other God. When you imagine a state and assume the feeling of that state is already realized, you are literally God in action, creating the conditions and events that must follow from that state. So when I tell you that everything you've been waiting for is coming, I am not speaking of some vague future possibility. I am speaking of an absolute law, as certain as gravity, as reliable as the rising of the sun. The law of assumption states that if you assume you are what you want to be, and continue in that assumption, it must harden into fact in your outer world. Consider for a moment the things you've been waiting for. Perhaps it's financial abundance, a loving relationship, perfect recognition for your talents, or a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Whatever it may be, know this: the mere fact that you can conceive of these things means they already exist in what we might call the fourth dimensional reality, the realm of imagination, which is the very substance of God. Your task then is not to make these things happen through effort and struggle. Your task is to transfer your consciousness from where you are to where you desire to be. You must mentally live in your wish fulfilled. You must, through the controlled use of your imagination, assume the feeling of already being the person who has what you desire. Let me share with you a secret that has transformed countless lives. Feeling is the secret. It is not enough to merely visualize what you want or to affirm it with your lips. You must capture and maintain the feeling of already having it. For feeling is the language that speaks to the subconscious, and the subconscious is the creative power that shapes your world. Now, some of you may be thinking, but Neville, I have tried this, and my desire has not materialized. To you I say this, revision is necessary. You must go back and revise the experiences that have convinced you of lack, of impossibility, of unworthiness. For as long as those beliefs persist in your subconscious, they will continue to project themselves into your world. Tonight I invite you to a new practice. When you return to your home, sit quietly in your room. Close your eyes and ask yourself, what is it that I truly desire? Allow the answer to come from the depths of your being. Then, with your eyes still closed, construct a scene in your imagination that would imply the fulfillment of that desire. Perhaps it is a friend congratulating you, or simply the feeling of deep satisfaction and contentment that would accompany your desire's fulfillment. Now enter that scene. Make it as real as possible in your imagination. See the colors, hear the sounds, feel the textures, and most importantly, feel the emotions that would be yours in that moment of fulfillment. Feel the gratitude, the joy, the peace, the love. Feel it so intensely that when you open your eyes, a part of you knows with unshakable certainty that what you have imagined is now in the process of becoming your physical reality. Do this night after night, and you will be preparing yourself for the manifestation that is already on its way to you. For make no mistake, my dear friends, the law is always working. Just as the law of gravity operates, whether you believe in it or not, the law of assumption is constantly shaping your experience according to the state you have assumed. Now let us speak of preparation. How does one prepare for the arrival of their heart's desire? First, by understanding the nature of time. In this three-dimensional world, events seem to unfold sequentially, creating the illusion of past, present, and future. But in the fourth dimension, in the realm of imagination, all possible states exist simultaneously. When you enter a state in your imagination, you are actually selecting one of these already existing states and bringing it into your three-dimensional experience. The time it takes for your imagined state to materialize in your physical reality is directly proportional to the naturalness of the state you've assumed. This is why feeling is so crucial. The more naturally you can feel yourself to be the person who already has what you desire, the more rapidly that desire will clothe itself in civil form. So preparation begins with cultivating patience and faith. Patience because seed time and harvest is a law of nature. You cannot plant a seed and expect it to bear fruit the same day. And faith because you must trust the process even when your senses deny the reality of your assumption. I have witnessed countless manifestations in my own life and in the lives of those who have applied this law. Let me share with you a story that illustrates this principle. A gentleman once came to me in dire financial straits. He had lost his business, was deeply in debt, and could see no way out of his predicament. I instructed him to imagine just before sleep each night that he was counting out large sums of money, feeling the crisp beat between his fingers, and experiencing the relief and joy of financial abundance. 2 weeks passed, and nothing changed in his outer circumstances. 3 weeks and still nothing. But he persisted in his imaginal act. Then, at the end of the month, he received a phone call from a former business associate whom he had not spoken to in years. This associate proposed a partnership that, within 6 months, restored my friend to a state of financial prosperity, far exceeding what he had known before. This is the law in operation. The seed was planted in imagination, it grew in the darkness of the subconscious, and it manifested in perfect time through channels that the conscious mind could never have conceived. So I say to you, everything you've been waiting for is coming. It is already on its way. But you must prepare yourself by living from the end, by occupying the state of consciousness that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. Now there's another aspect of preparation that I must address, and it is perhaps the most important of all. You must be willing to let go of your old concept of self. For many of you, the person you believe yourself to be is intimately tied to the circumstances you currently experience. To manifest a new reality, you must be willing to become a new self. This is the true meaning of death and rebirth. It is not the physical body that must die, but rather the old concept of self. You must die to your present self-concept to be reborn as the self that is aligned with your desire. This can be challenging, for the ego resists change. It clings to the familiar, even when the familiar is painful or limiting. But I assure you, this death is not to be feared, for what awaits you on the other side is the fulfillment of all that you have ever dreamed. Let me be very clear about this law of assumption. It is not mere positive thinking or wishful fantasizing. It is the deliberate use of your imagination to select and occupy a state of consciousness. When this is done with feeling and persistence, the outer world must rearrange itself to reflect your inner reality. Think of it this way. Your consciousness is like a radio dial. On that dial are infinite stations, each one broadcasting a different version of reality. The station you are tuned to right now is broadcasting your current life circumstances. To change those circumstances, you must tune the dial to a different station, one that is broadcasting the reality you desire to experience. The tuning is done through your imagination, guided by feeling. When you imagine a scene that implies the fulfillment of your desire, and when you feel the emotions that such fulfillment bring, you are turning the dial to a new station. Persist in this new frequency, and your outer world will shift to match it. Now some of you may wonder about the role of action in this process. Must you not also take action to realize your desires? The truth is that inspired action will flow naturally from your changed consciousness. When you genuinely assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will find yourself naturally doing the things that someone in that state would do. Moreover, doors will open that were previously closed to you. Opportunities will present themselves that your logical mind could never have devised. People will be drawn to you who can assist in the manifestation of your desire. All of this happens not because you are forcing it through willpower, but because you have changed your state of consciousness, and your outer world must conform to that inner change. Let me give you another illustration from my own experience. Many years ago, I desired to travel to Barbados to visit my family. However, I had no money for passage, and the wartime restrictions make civilian travel difficult. Rather than focusing on these obstacles, I went to sleep each night imagining that I was sleeping in my childhood home in Barbados. I could feel the tropical breeze, hear the familiar sounds, and experience the joy of being with my loved ones. Within a few weeks, I received a letter from my brother containing money for passage, and shortly thereafter, I was granted a spot on a ship bound for Barbados, despite the wartime restrictions on civilian travel. The outer circumstances rearranged themselves to match my inner assumption. This is the promise I make to you tonight. Whatever you have been waiting for, be it love, wealth, health, or any other desire of your heart, it is coming to you now. But you must prepare yourself by assuming the feeling of its fulfillment, by living from the state of consciousness of having already received it. Let us delve deeper into this preparation, for it is multifaceted and requires a certain discipline of mind. The first aspect of preparation is mental. You must clean the windows of your mind, clearing away the accumulated dust of limiting beliefs and negative assumptions. Begin by watching your thoughts and the words you speak. Are they aligned with your desire, or do they contradict it? Do you affirm abundance while secretly harboring thoughts of lack? Do you speak of health while dwelling on symptoms of illness? This divided mind cannot manifest effectively. As it is written, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. To prepare your mind, practice what I call mental dieting. Just as you would carefully select the food you put into your body for optimal health, so must you carefully select the thoughts you allow to dwell in your mind. Feed your mind with thoughts of the wish fulfilled. Starve your mind of thoughts that contradict your desire. When negative thoughts arise, and they will, for the old habits of mind, do not surrender easily, do not fight them or suppress them. Simply observe them without judgment, and then deliberately replace them with thoughts that support your new assumption. The second aspect of preparation is emotional. As I have emphasized, feeling is the secret. You must cultivate the emotional state that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. This requires emotional discipline and awareness. Many of you live in a constant state of emotional reaction to external circumstances. Something happens, and you react with anger, fear, disappointment, or resentment. This reactive pattern keeps you bound to your current reality. To break free, you must become the master of your emotional state, choosing it deliberately rather than having it dictated by circumstances. Practice feeling the emotions of your wish fulfilled, regardless of what your senses report. Feel the security of financial abundance, even when your bank account is empty. Feel the love and companionship of a harmonious relationship, even when you appear to be alone. Feel the vitality and energy of perfect health, even when your body seems to contradict this. The third aspect of preparation is spiritual. By this, I do not mean religious in the conventional sense, but rather the recognition of your true identity as a spiritual being, as God individualized in human form. The greatest barrier to manifesting your desires is the belief in separation, the belief that you are separate from your good, separate from other people, separate from God. This belief in separation is the root of all fear, all lack, all conflict. To prepare spiritually is to embrace the truth of your oneness with all that is. It is to recognize that the power that created the universe is not outside of you, but within you, expressing as you. It is your very consciousness, your awareness, your I am. When you truly understand this, you will no longer beg or plead for your good to come to you from some external source. You will know that all that you desire already exists within you as a state of consciousness, waiting to be assumed and expressed. The fourth aspect of preparation is physical. Your physical body and environment are the densest, most external expressions of your consciousness. As such, they often lag behind your mental and emotional shifts. This is why patience is necessary. However, you can support the manifestation process by bringing your physical environment into alignment with your assumption. Clear out the clutter that represents your old life. Create space for the new to enter. Dress, speak, and carry yourself as the person who already has what you desire. This is not pretense or fakery. It is the outer expression of an inner conviction. It is living from the end, embodying the state you wish to manifest. Now let us address a question that often arises: what about the desires of others? What if what you want conflicts with what someone else wants? Remember this: in the realm of true creation, there is no competition, no scarcity, no conflict of interests. When you operate from the level of the imagination, which is the level of God, you are not taking from anyone else. You are selecting from the infinite variety of already existing states. Moreover, when you assume a state of consciousness that includes harmonious relationships and mutual benefit, that is what you will experience. If you assume a state of having what you want at the expense of others, that conflict will manifest in your experience. This is why I advocate assuming states of consciousness that embody the highest good for all concerned. Imagine not only your own joy and fulfillment, but also the joy and fulfillment of everyone involved in your manifestation. Let me share with you another principle that will help you in preparing for the arrival of your desire. It is the principle of detachment, or what some might call letting go. Many of you hold on to your desires with such desperation, such anxiety about whether or when they will manifest, that you actually push them away. This anxious attachment comes from the belief that what you want is separate from you and might elude your grasp. True manifestation requires a certain detachment, not from the desire itself, but from the anxious need to control the timing and the means of its fulfillment. When you have truly assumed the state of the wish fulfilled, you can relax in the certainty that the outer reality must conform to your inner assumption in its own perfect time and way. This detachment is not indifference. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing the law and trusting its operation. It is the peace of mind that allows you to get on with your daily life, secure in the knowledge that your new reality is already established in consciousness and is now moving toward you in the world of form. Now I want to address something that many of you struggle with. the appearance of obstacles or delays in the manifestation of your desire. When your outer world seems to contradict your inner assumption, it is easy to become discouraged and to doubt the law. But I tell you this, what appears as an obstacle or delay is often the very means by which your desire will be fulfilled. The bridge of incidents that leads to your manifestation may include elements that your limited perspective seem to be taking you further away from your goal. This is where faith becomes essential, not blind faith in some external power, but faith in the law, faith in the creative power of your own consciousness. Trust that the seed you have planted in the garden of your mind is growing, even when you cannot yet see the sprout above the soil. And remember this, the manifestation always comes in ways that you could not have planned with your conscious mind. If you try to dictate exactly how your desire should manifest, you limit the infinite intelligence that is orchestrating the perfect unfoldment of your assumption. So release all anxiety about the how and the when. Your job is to maintain the state of consciousness of the wish fulfilled. The law will take care of the rest, bringing your desire to you through the path of least resistance, which may not be the path you would have consciously chosen. Let me give you yet another example from my own experience. There was a time when I desired to be invited to speak at a certain prestigious venue, rather than focusing on all the reasons why this seemed unlikely. I simply imagined hearing the director of the venue introducing me to the audience. I felt the satisfaction and gratitude of this experience in my imagination. A few weeks passed, and I received no invitation. Then, seemingly unrelated to my desire, I was invited to speak at a small gathering in a private home. I accepted, though it appeared to have nothing to do with my original wish. At this gathering was a guest who, unknown to me, was a close friend of the director of the prestigious venue I had imagined speaking at. This guest was so moved by my talk that they recommended me to the director, and within a month I received the invitation I had imagined. Had I been fixated on a direct invitation coming from the director, I might have declined the seemingly insignificant invitation to speak at the private home, thereby missing the bridge of insights that was leading to the fulfillment of my desire. This is why I counsel you to release all preconceptions about how your good will come to you. Trust the law, maintain your assumption, and allow the infinite intelligence to work out the details. Now, as we approach the close of our time together, I want to address one final aspect of preparation that is often overlooked but is absolutely crucial. It is the practice of gratitude. Gratitude is the feeling that completes the manifestation cycle. When you express gratitude for something, you are affirming its reality in your experience. Gratitude is the recognition that what you have asked for has already been given. Begin now to give thanks for the fulfillment of your desire, even before it appears in your three-dimensional reality. Thank your Father, which is your own magnificent human imagination, for having already granted your request. This is not pretense. It is recognition of the truth that in the fourth-dimensional reality, where your imagination dwells, your desire is already fulfilled. Your gratitude acknowledges this truth and helps to bring it into your three-dimensional experience. Make gratitude a daily practice. Each night before you sleep, review the day as if your desire had already been fulfilled. Feel the gratitude that such fulfillment would inspire. Let that feeling of gratitude be the last emotion you experience before drifting into sleep, for the subconscious is most receptive in those moments before slumber. And as you awaken each morning, let your first thought be one of gratitude for the fulfillment of your desire. In this way, you create a consciousness saturated with the feeling of the wish fulfilled, and this consciousness must externalize itself in your world. My dear friends, I have shared with you tonight the truth that everything you've been waiting for is coming to you now. I have explained the law by which this manifestation occurs, the law of assumption, and I have outlined the ways in which you can prepare yourself to receive your heart's desire. Let me summarize these principles once more, that they may be firmly established in your understanding. First, know that you are God individualized. The creative power of the universe is your own human imagination. Second, to manifest your desire, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Feeling is the secret that speaks to the subconscious, which is the creative power. Third, prepare yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically for the manifestation of your desire. Live from the end, embodying the state of consciousness that would be yours if your desire were already fulfilled. Fourth, release anxiety about the timing and the means of manifestation. Trust the law, knowing that the bridge of incidents is being built to bring your desire to you in divine order. Fifth, practice gratitude for the fulfillment of your desire, affirming its reality in the fourth dimension, which is the realm of imagination. As you leave this place tonight and return to your homes, I challenge you to put these principles into practice. Select one desire, the thing you want most at this moment, and begin to live as if it were already yours. Feel the emotions it would inspire. Express the gratitude it would evoke. Embody the state of consciousness it would create. Do this consistently, persistently, faithfully. And I promise you that your outer world will reshape itself to match your inner assumption. For this is the law, and the law is absolute. Everything you've been waiting for is coming to you now. Prepare yourself by becoming in consciousness the person who already has it. For what you are, in consciousness, you must manifest in experience. The world is yourself pushed out. Change yourself and you change your world. This is the great secret, the great revelation, the great law by which all things come into being. Go now in the knowledge of your divinity, in the certainty of the law, and in the joyful expectation of the manifestation of all that your heart desires. For truly all things are possible to him who believes. Remember, creation is finished. All states exist now. Your task is not to create what you want, but to appropriate what already exists. And you do this through the assumption of the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Tonight, as you lay your head upon your pillow, I urge you to make this your practice. Enter into the silence of your own being. Construct a scene that would imply the fulfillment of your desire. Enter that scene. Make it real. Feel it. Believe it. Accept it as true. Fall asleep in that state. And watch as the power that is your own wonderful human imagination goes to work, reshaping your world to match your assumption. For the law is this: as within, so without. As above, so below. What you assume, you become. What you believe, you receive. What you expect, you experience. Everything you've been waiting for is coming. It is already yours in consciousness. Now, through your faithful assumption, it will become yours in experience. My blessing goes with you. May you use this law wisely, lovingly, and joyfully for the enrichment of your own life and the lives of all those you touch.